a Q&A. I don't really use Zoom, so we'll just figure out what the best way to go about that is. So let me share my screen. All right, cool. Everybody can see this, right? Black MartelTurnkey.
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, cool. So pretty much a little bit about me. You guys don't see the video on the right-hand side, right? No.
We
No,
can still
no.
see you. Wait, or what
Okay.
video?
No. It's good. You're good. Don't worry.
Okay, it's so weird though because I can see it and you guys can't. All right, anyways, so a little bit about me. First of all, background. Antoine Martel was born in Toronto, grew up in San Mateo, California, which is in the Bay Area. Now I live in Culver City. I went to LMU, which is in West LA, graduated in 2017, so studied entrepreneurship. I'm 25 years old right now, just turned 25 a couple weeks ago. So right out of college, I didn't want to work for somebody else. I knew that I wanted to start my own business while I was in university. That's kind of why I was studying entrepreneurship, because I didn't want to go and work for somebody else. And the story goes that in my junior year, so I transferred from a community college in the Bay Area, went down to LA to go to LMU. And then when I transferred down to LA, my brother took me and my dad to a real estate investing seminar. We learned about flipping houses. We learned, how to look at the numbers, how to analyze deals, and do all this kind of thing with flipping homes. And so when we learned about that, it was super intriguing to me. It was really eye-opening to see that people were actually making this much money through real estate investing, especially in California. And it was something that I wanted to try. So I kind of learned about it in my junior year. And then from my junior year all the way until my last semester, all I did was focus on real estate and real estate investing. I was networking my ass off on Bigger Pockets. I was taking people out to coffee that were doing deals in LA. And I was just learning as much as I possibly could from people who were actually doing deals. And so when I first started, I wanted to flip houses in LA. I realized that I didn't have any money, but my dad had 40 grand that he had in the stock market or retirement account that he wanted to invest in real estate. Quickly realized that with 40 grand in LA, you can't really do much. So after making offers for about 6 months, we never got anything under contract, never got any deals going. So we ended up changing strategies because flipping houses in LA with 40 grand just wasn't going to work. Then we started wholesaling. Or looking into wholesaling, then we kind of just kept pushing and pivoting what we wanted to do. So instead of doing stuff in LA, okay, maybe we'll do the Central Valley, maybe we'll do Las Vegas, maybe, and just kept pushing it out and out until the prices got low enough to where our 40 grand could actually make something happen. So I started, because we weren't going to invest in LA anymore due to budget issues, I was like, okay, where in the US can I invest? And through networking, through Bigger Pockets and networking events on meetup.com, I met a bunch of people who were making a killing with real estate investing out of state. So they weren't even investing locally. They were only investing out of state. And I was like, how the hell did you choose this market? Why'd you choose this market? And started figuring out why they chose these markets out of state to invest. And then I collected a bunch of information that they used to find their markets. I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS.gov, and pretty much just made a spreadsheet with the top 100 markets in the US with a population over 250,000, for example. And I just started calculating all these these markets. And then at the top of the list was Memphis, Cleveland, Birmingham, and St. Louis. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start in Memphis and let me see what I can pull up. So now I had found a market that I was interested in, that learning from all these people telling me that that's what they use to find a market. I took that information and I started building a team, because that's the next thing you need, especially when you're investing out of state, is a team on the ground to manage everything. And I found a team probably in January after calling, cold calling probably 250 agents. I called every single property management company on the ground, called contractors, escrow companies, title companies. I called everybody. I even called lenders because I wanted to do what's called the BRRRR strategy, which I'll explain to you guys later at the end. But my last semester, I bought that first property. It was a couple of months before graduating. Again, I didn't want to go and get a job. I hadn't started applying for jobs. And so I bought that first property with my dad's money. And so we bought it for 35 grand, renovated it for $5,000, and then did a cash out refinance on that property. So bought it, rehabbed it, rented it out, and then went to a local credit union and say, hey, this property has a tenant in place. Can we get a refinance on this property? And so that's pretty much what this BRRRR strategy means: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And so I'll explain it later, kind of how the numbers work. But bought that first property like a month or two before graduating. Then as soon as I graduated, we had completed the refinance. And so I was able to give my dad all his money back. And then I went to him and said, hey, I can keep doing this after graduating, and I can grow this family portfolio if you want me to. Just pay for my living expenses, or just cover me for 6 months. Let me try to figure this thing out. And so I graduated in May. By December, I had figured it out. We had like a portfolio of probably like 8 to 10 homes in Memphis in that same little pocket. So we scaled up really quickly, just using that same money and turning it over and over and over again, which I'll show you later on. And so once we had our own portfolio, then we had ran out of money because just, with every deal, you're not able to refinance or pull out all your funds. So you leave a little bit of cash in every single deal. So we had around 8 to 10 homes in Memphis, and we wanted to, then people started reaching out to us to invest in real estate, and wanted to invest in real estate out of state, buy rental properties, have cash flow, all that kind of stuff. And so that's when we started helping new investors grow a rental property portfolio, and we created this company called MartelTurnkey. And so what is a turnkey company? So it's a little bit different than the BRRRR strategy. So pretty much what we do is we go buy the homes, rehab them, rent them out, and then we sell them to our clients. We help our clients get financing, insurance, property management. So everything is done for them. Essentially, if you have 20 grand in the bank and you're financeable, you can buy a turnkey rental property, which is pretty much going to be a single family home with a tenant in place in layman's terms. The client can essentially turn the key and start collecting cash flow. So it collects cash flow from day one because it's sold with a tenant in place already paying. And then most of our clients, again, are people that work full time. They want to invest. Maybe they don't like the stock market and they only have 20 grand and they want to invest in real estate. And so this company that we started helped make it possible. So the couple of markets we're investing in, Memphis and Cleveland. So Memphis is the first market that we started investing in. Now we're in Cleveland, Ohio as well. And also I should add here, we're doing, so this was in 2017 when I graduated. Now we're doing 10 houses a month. So last year I bought, rehabbed, and sold 85 homes. And this year we'll probably do over 120 homes. So we've really scaled up over time. Again, this is just going to be about the turnkey business. Then I'll explain how the hell a 25-year-old did that with only 50 grand. Here's some information about Cleveland that just made it popular, and not popular, but made it interesting for me. First thing, diverse workforce. So biggest industry, education and health, which is 19% of the total workforce. So that's important because you don't want to buy in a market that's like a Detroit. You don't want all the employees to be from working at the same company. If that company leaves that market, then you're screwed and your properties are all going to be vacant. Some major employers, names that you and me both know: second best hospital in the US, which is the Cleveland Clinic, is headquartered in Cleveland. 10 Fortune 500 companies, 3 major sports teams. Amazon is building 2 warehouse facilities, which are now done. They're building like a new trail project in Northeast Cleveland. And so this is just some facts and information that, while I was in college, I was researching and learning, and these are all great points that, can kind of create a great market to invest in. We can leave out that last part. And then, so these are what the properties look like and the price points that these properties are at. A little different than California where we are. So I'll go through each of them, but this is a single family home for 120 grand. This is a duplex for 74,000 bucks, and then another duplex for $92,000. And so see, the initial investment is going to be how much money you're going to need to buy. You'll need down plus a couple $1,000 in closing costs and the returns that you can make potentially on these properties. So I'll run through the numbers for you guys. So this is the address. Is the address Tuxedo, $120,000 purchase price. So remember, I already bought it, rehabbed it, rented it out, and now I'm selling it. So this is kind of what I share with my turnkey clients, right? So here's the address, selling it for 120 grand, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square feet. So again, $120,000. The current rent is $1,100. The cap rate is 8%. Cash on cash return is 14%. And so somebody's going to essentially buy this property. There's going to be rental income of $1,100, property taxes of $118, insurance of $41, property management to manage the property. So your net operating income is $831, and then you're going to have a loan, right? So the net cash flow at the end of the day is $314 a month. And so with this, pretty much how we get this 14% number here is by taking the $27,000 initial investment and then just analyzing the cash flow based on that $27,000 initial investment. So $27,000 goes in and you make $314 a month in positive cash flow. So this is kind of the product that we sell. And this is like a good neighborhood, by the way. I know the price seems ridiculous, but this is actually a good, solid neighborhood, great schools, no crime. This is where your white collar people live in Cleveland, Ohio. Now here's another one. This is a duplex. So somebody would come in, buy this for 74 grand, rent it out for 1050. Cap rate's 10%, cash on cash 16. So somebody comes in with $21,000 and they're able to make $288 a month. And you can see on the right-hand side too, the only difference here, the numbers are going to be different because taxes and insurance is always different for the different type of property. But for duplexes, something interesting to note is that lawn, water, and sewer, which are, stuff that you don't have to worry about on single family homes, is stuff that you have to pay for as a landlord on these duplexes. Now here's another duplex, looks again very similar. Come in with 26,000 bucks. They would make $369 a month, so pretty good cash flow. And then again, only difference here is rent is a little bit higher, lawn, water, sewer is the same, and property taxes are $133. So, and this is also in like an up and coming area as well, which is really nice, called the Waterloo Arts District, if anybody's interested. So those are the kinds of properties that we sell, these three kind of things. And so that's what we go when we're doing our sales calls or whatever. This is kind of the stuff we pitch and what we're selling 10 of these a month. So I want to show you guys a little bit of behind the curtain, because that's great for people that already have stable jobs and maybe don't want to be an investor. But I think a lot of you guys on the phone call want to know how the hell you get to that point and how you're able to raise that much money and do that many projects. So I'm going to explain to you these three different. First is going to be joint ventures, then private money lending, and then I'll explain the burst strategy, which I spoke about earlier, and then we can open it up. So when I first started, again, we only had 50,000 bucks, right? So $40,000 to $50,000. And I was like, okay, how the hell? We started seeing that these people were interested in buying these turnkey rental properties. Okay, great. But how do I create that product for them with only $50,000? I'm not going to go buy, I can only do one house at a time, right? So I need to leverage my money and put my money into many different projects so I can scale. So I didn't want to do one house every 4 months. I wanted to do 4 houses every month, right? So how do I do that with only $50,000? It's by going out and leveraging other people's money. And I did that through this joint venture. How did I meet joint venture partners? I met joint venture partners through Bigger Pockets. I met joint venture partners through networking events and just networking with people, learning what they were interested in investing in, how much cash they had, et cetera, et cetera. And through those conversations, I built an email list of a couple hundred people that had 50,000 bucks or more saved up and they wanted to invest, and they just, they had a wife and kids and 2 dogs, and they didn't want to go and do the research that you or I might want to do to invest in real estate. So what I offered them at the very beginning was splitting the profits 50-50, right? So it was going to be a 3-month project. Let's say the address is 123 Main Street. The process is we're going to buy it, rehab it, rent it out, and then resell the property all within 3 months. So we'll go buy the house for 25 grand, renovate it for 22,000 bucks, taxes, insurance, and closing costs for 3,000 bucks. So all in for 50 grand to make it easy. Now I'm going to go raise money from some guy in LA who has an extra 45 grand laying around and wants to invest in real estate. I'm going to come in with 5,000 bucks. So, I have 50 grand. I put 5 grand in just to show some skin in the game. And then we're going to sell the home for $60,000, right? So we're going to make $10,000 in profit, total cost 50, sales price is 60. So the profit is 10 grand. So I'm going to split the profits with the investor 50-50. So the equity investor put in 45 grand and he made 5 grand just in 3 months. I put in 5 grand, so I doubled my money. I put in 5 grand, I made 5 grand in 3 months as well. So it's great for me, it's good for him. But as I started doing these projects, after probably like 10 to 20 of them, I realized how much money I was giving away. I think we looked at the end of 2018. I think we looked at our tax return, and it was like half of the profits went to the investors. And we're like, all right, we have to change the way that we're raising money, and we have to do it in a different way now that we have a rapport and like people actually trust us and we actually have a process down. So what did we end up doing? We ended up doing what's called private money lending. We're raising private money. So private money, now they're not getting any of the profit share, but it's pretty much like a loan that they're giving me to go and do the project. And it's secured by one little piece of paper, which is a promissory note. Super easy. You can download a template online. And we were paying these people 12% annualized interest. So look how much it changed the numbers. So all in for 50 again. Now the lender is going to come in with the same amount, but now they're a lender and not an equity investor. We'll come in with the 5 grand. We'll sell it for 60, profits 10. Now, instead of paying somebody $5,000, they're just going to make 1% on their money, which is 12% annualized return for 3 months. So they're going to make $1,350, and now I'm going to make $8,650. So this, as soon as I had, rapport with these people and I was able to show like, oh, I completed 20 houses or whatever, it allowed me to go and raise money like this instead of giving away half of my profits, right? So this is much better for me in the long term, and I can make way more money on every single deal. Now we're going to add some scale and speed to it. So this is great that you're making, the numbers do look small, right? But okay, remember I had 50 grand. So, and this is only taking up $5,000 of my money. So let's say, again, I had $50,000 saved up. I can do 10 deals at once because $5,000 per deal times 10 is 50 grand. Average project length is 3 months. So I can do around 3 deals a month. The profit per deal, let's just say it's 8,500. So we'll take the 8,650 and just make it easy, 8,500. So I can make 25 grand a month on my $50,000 if I just find these people that I can go and raise money from, right? So 1 year out of college, this was what I was doing. And I was just buying, rehabbing, raising money for the projects, and then selling and doing three houses a month. Now this number is 10 houses a month. So that's kind of how I was able to scale up my cash, and then also like do a large amount of projects with very little money by leveraging other people's money. There's many different ways to leverage other people's money as well. And those are kind of 2 examples that I would look into. Now I'll explain the BRRRR strategy, which I talked about at the very beginning. So the BRRRR strategy is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So let me explain. This is right out of college. This is what I was going to do with my dad's 50 grand. So let's take this house, $50,000, right? So purchase, rehab, $3,000 in other costs. Total cost is 50 grand, and it's worth $60,000 after. So the after repair value is 60. I'm going to go to the bank once the property has been fully renovated, once the property's been rented out. I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to say, hey, I own this property. I own it free and clear. I own it with my own money. I want to do a refinance. And they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to do an appraisal. And then so you have an appraiser go out to the property and they say, all right, great, the house is worth $60,000. We're going to give you a loan of 80% of that number. So I'm all in for 50 grand, right? Now the bank is going to write me a check for $48,000. Yeah, I'm going to have mortgage payments that are going to be due, which weren't due before, but that's fine because I get all my money back. So I'm leaving $2,000 in the deal now, right? 50 grand of my cash minus $48,000, 2 grand left in the deal. And then let's look at how much money I'm making per month. So $700 a month in rental income minus taxes and insurance. Property management gives you your NOI or net operating income. Then I have this new loan. So $48,000 loan cost me $250 a month. So I'm making $230 a month on my $2,000 investment. So I have next to nothing in a deal and I'm making a couple $100 a month. So through this strategy, as you can see, made a lot of sense to figure this whole process out, because I could make 150% of my money, which is kind of ridiculous. And some deals I would be able to cash out all of my money. So I would have no money left in the deal and I would have an infinite return. And that's how you get the 230 times 12 is the net cash flow per year. And then that's a 138%. And now, so that's just one house, right? Which, okay, cool. You're making $230 a month. But let's say you or somebody you knew or a parent or relative or rich uncle had 50 grand. So you could, with this process, if you just repeated it over and over, you could repeat it 25 times. So your total cash left in the deals would be $50,000. Your net cash flow per month would then be $6,000, and your net cash flow per year would be $70,000. With just that one $50,000 investment, you can have a portfolio of 25 single-family homes and be making $70,000 a year. So right out of college, this is kind of the platform that I was following to, retire my parents, is what my end goal was. And this was kind of my strategy to do it, is to make them an extra $6,000 to $10,000 a month, just with the limited amount of cash they had. So with that, that's it. That's kind of all I had. I think that was a ton of information, and now I can open it up for questions. There's my contact info. I'd recommend following me on Instagram. I post a lot of good content, and then you can also text me at that phone number there. And that's probably the best way and fastest way to get a response from me.
There's some questions in the chat. So if
Shit.
we can start there first. And if anybody else has questions they want to ask live, they can do that as well. But we can start with the chat first if you see the chat.
Yeah. Oh gosh. In turnkey, does a person investing just gain the monthly cash flow from rent and not just actual equity in the house? No, they don't get any equity in the house. They're just you're buying turnkeys for the cash flow that the turnkeys are going to produce. All right, next question.
Regarding the turnkeys, wouldn't you get your equity from the money you put down, as well as whatever is paid towards the principal from the loan?
Yeah, but it's going to be very little, right? So the amount of principal payments that you're going to make for the first couple of years is going to be next to nothing, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, your equity is going to increase by $14 every month, but it's going to take a long time to, it's a 30-year mortgage, right?
Yeah, the primary reason for investing in a turnkey is to get that instant cash flow.
Exactly. It's for the cash flow and for the ease of it too, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Just makes it super simple and super easy for somebody with a busy schedule who has just money in the bank sitting there.
Cool.
Turnkey is where okay, yeah. Oh yeah, good question. How did you navigate the legal aspects of a joint venture? What entity did you have to establish between you, the company, and the private investors? Great question. So we use a joint venture template. That's it. Again, you can find one online. You can have a lawyer look at it if you want. When I first started, I didn't. It was just read through it and make sure that you understand what the hell you're signing. But you can have a lawyer look at something and explain your thing for a couple $100 to protect yourself or your investor. Most of the time, your investor will have their lawyers look at it, and so you can let them do that as well, and they can make edits and bring things to your attention. What entity did you have to establish between you? And then, yeah, so we pretty much made an LLC to buy that property. And then we did a joint venture from that LLC to our joint venture partner. And then how our profits split in the end, we would do a final accounting just with Google Sheets, and we would just share the Google Sheets and be like, hey, this is how much you invested. Here's the financials for the deal. Boom, let's split the profits.
Oh, so you don't hire any bookkeepers or anything to do that for you?
Now we do, but when I first started, I was the bookkeeper. So I had a QuickBooks account and I was doing all that stuff.
So did you enter the LLC together, or was the LLC partnered with the individual with the entity?
Yeah, you don't want to partner just keep the LLC of you, because you want to maintain ownership of the property. So don't bring them into the LLC. It just complicates the hell out of things. It's better if you just do a joint venture agreement with them, And then at the end of the year, you can collect the, W-9 or tax form, and then just tell the government how much you paid them in their profits.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Cool. What's standard? Oh, shit. What standard LTV ratio do your hard money lenders require? I don't use hard money. Hard money is a little bit different, right? So this is coming from people that I'm meeting off the street or at networking events. Hard money lenders are going to be people that have actual businesses and that's their main source of income. They're going to charge points and do all that kind of weird stuff. If you saw my thing, there was no points, right? So like that would totally eat up my profits, is because let's say like I was raising 50 grand from a PML or from an investor, and it's 3 points. That's $1,500 in fees off the front that I would just lose completely. So I never paid points or anything. I just paid them straight interest.
On top of that, I know now it'd probably be easier to get the money, or you don't even need to for self-funding. But when you were starting out, one of the difficult things I'm facing with is finding a lender. Because I plan on doing the BRRRR process, finding a lender to do something like 10 to 12%, but they always want, I feel like they always want some sort of stipulation, like 2% of the final profit or some sort of thing. How did you go about raising funds during, like, when you were initially starting?
Are you trying to do, what kind of project are you trying to do? A BRRRR project?
Yeah.
And you need the money for like to buy it and rehab it?
Yeah, primarily. So we have probably $100,000 right now. The original plan was to do a conventional loan, and then after a year, do some sort of addition where we add another room or bathroom on a duplex, or and then refinance that, and then do the cash out refi that way. But we're also looking into potentially wanting to expedite that process and only do it over a 3-month period, so we can refinance faster. But it's becoming a lot of difficulty finding someone to lend us enough money to make up that margin.
Yeah, where are you trying to do this project? In LA?
In Southern California.
Yeah, they can make their own rules, right? So with only $100 grand, they can tell you what you're gonna do. So that's exactly why we went out of state. I don't really know much. I mean, you could probably try to find a hard money lender or something like that. And okay, hold on one sec. Alex, go and do you have your phone on you?
Yeah, I do.
All right, go search on Instagram, Alex, AlexBekeza, Alex Bekeza. He does BRRRR lending, and he does it only in California. He should be able to help you out.
B as in like Valentine?
I'll type it right here.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
There you go. Search him, Alex Bekeza.
Right.
All right, cool. Antoine, so you're essentially doing a 1031 exchange with each turnkey investment. No, there's no 1031 exchanges going on here. I'm on track to purchase my first property by the last semester as well. Nice. However, I don't want to invest outside of SoCal. I'm willing to pay the premium. Have you ever thought about rehabbing condos in downtown LA? I plan on thinking. Man, I wouldn't recommend it. Rehabbing condos in downtown LA, especially with the market right now, I wouldn't touch that kind of asset class, especially if it's like luxury condos, which is probably what you're gonna have to do downtown. And then also be careful with the FHA program. Yeah, you're putting 3.5% down. It's all great, but you have to live there for a year. So, if you're expecting to like buy a condo, rehab it, and flip it in like a couple of months, it's not going to be possible with that FHA financing. How did you go about doing your due diligence during escrow to verify your numbers as well as manage the rehab process? Good question. So doing due diligence during escrow. So whenever we make offers, we give ourselves time to like send our contractors, send our crew through the property. Our contractors go through. If you don't have a crew, then what you can do is you could just call property management companies in the area and say, hey, I'm an investor from California. I want to invest in market. Can you help me? I found this property and I want to get it rehabbed so that you guys can rent it out for me. And so that's exactly what I did when I first started too. Well, if I would just do it over again, that's what I would have done. It would have saved a lot of time. But you can leverage the property management contractors on the ground. So you don't need to go like cold calling or like fly to Memphis and go to a Home Depot to find a contractor. You can just call these property management companies that manage 1,000 doors in Memphis, and they're going to already have contractors for you to use. So then once you put a property under contract or make an offer, give yourself time in that offer to, during escrow or doing your due diligence, to send your contractor. So you can give yourself 7 days, 14 days. And then as soon as you're under contract, you can send that contractor through the property. And then before you close, make sure everything like hits the numbers exactly what you wanted for yourself. What about realtor fees during the sale? Also, what's the average days on market? Yeah, great question. So realtor fees, we don't use realtors. We don't use realtors. So everything is sold through me. So I just sell it. I'm the owner of the properties. So I don't have to pay realtors, and I do my own marketing. So everything is sold through my website, MartelTurnkey.com. So we get around all the realtor fees, don't have to pay any of that stuff. Average days on market for properties like this to sell. Normally, as soon as we buy a property and we begin renovating it, we sell it while it's still under construction. So normally our projects are, again, 3 to 4 months. And within that time, we buy it, rehab it, rent it out, and are able to sell it. And are we only selling to investors? Yes. No owner occupiers.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it sounds like you guys are only investing in Memphis and Cleveland. I'm not familiar with this market. What's like the average cap rate out there?
For single family homes?
Yeah, are you guys, is it only residential, not commercial?
Yeah.
The 4 units, what are you kind of looking at here?
Yeah, so for residential, you're going to be probably like 8 to 10% cap rate. And then for multifamily, you're probably going to be at a 7 or 8% cap rate.
And so it looks like you guys only invest in residential for now?
No, I also last year bought 100 units of apartments as well in Memphis, Tennessee.
And it also sounds like you guys are pretty leveraged. So like, for example, with this current pandemic, right? How are you guys hedging, or if at all? Paying rent, things like that.
For the turnkey business?
Yeah, or just because so I have a small portfolio in San Francisco, and, we have some commercial and residential tenants, and luckily we got lucky. The tenants were all in the medical field. Our commercial tenant was a startup in at-home workout equipment, and so they're still paying rent. But if they weren't, and we're leveraged, we would be pretty,
yeah,
in the shitstorm right now, So.
Yeah. I mean, we are pretty leveraged, but not enough to a point where we're going to be affected, because these are rental properties, right? So if I was flipping houses and I was this leveraged, then I would be nervous, because a lot of people, like, open houses are shut down. Nobody's doing open houses. So like all of that stuff is super scary right now. So luckily, with just the property class that we're in, which is very affordable housing, where somebody with their $1,200 stimulus check can actually pay for rent and food and their car. You know what I'm saying? So with all of those things, it's helped reduce that risk for us. And then also, on the other hand, the buyers that are buying these turnkey investments, they haven't gone away, right? So they're just working from home. They're working they have their white collar job in major markets. So Seattle, San Francisco, LA, New York, Miami. And so they're just working from home. It's no different. They're still getting paid and stuff like that. And so our buyers haven't gone away. And then, our buyers haven't gone away, and there's still a ton of deals out there for us to do.
And so another issue I came across is, so you said you recently bought a 100-unit apartment complex. How much money did you put down? Because I'm looking at a property right now, and they're looking for 50% down with COVID and all these things.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bullshit. We bought 100 units total. We spent around $50,000 a unit to buy it. Mm-hmm. So, we bought 11 unit building, 24 unit building, another 24 unit building, and 16 unit building. And so it just sums up to close to
And you're just
100
doing
units.
2080?
Say it again.
Your loan to a value,
Value?
20 to 80%.
So the loan to value for apartments is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be probably like closer to 70%. That's what we've been getting.
Interesting. And you're still doing the strategy with the pandemic?
I closed my biggest deal ever 30 days ago, April 14th.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
And I would also check out this map too, which I found out about. So like it's CBRE, like maps all the cap rates. This is for 2019. Maybe they have a better one, but you can kind of type what kind of property it is, and then you can go and see kind of like what I said. It shows that. Hold on, let me make it bigger. Sorry, my screen's hella big. And then you can kind of see what the cap rates are, the average cap rate for different markets. So you can see for Memphis, Class C, suburban multifamily, it's going to be 7%, whereas LA, is, well, that seems high. For A classes, that still seems high. But this is a cool map too that I've used to kind of, in Memphis and Cleveland, it's accurate, but not in LA. All right, let's see.
What is this website called?
Shit, sorry.
And so what's your game plan? Like, are you trying to eventually 1031 your properties and continue that method? Or are you just looking at for rental income and refinance? And so what's kind of...
a couple of, I just texted it in the chat. The game plan right now is to buy as many single family homes as we can. The lending for the multifamily has tightened up. We're probably like one of the last deals to close for multifamily. And so but also the lending for the single family has tied up and dried up, right? So a lot of hard money lenders, I've been calling them all week and they're all shut down. And they're not lending and they have no plans no date to come back. So that's scary, but it's created a lot of deals in the single family home space. So multifamily, I'm kind of screwed because I need to buy it with financing. Single family, it doesn't matter to me because I just showed you how I'm raising money for those projects, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't need to go and get hard money. I can go and raise money from Bob, and Bob's going to give me the $200,000 I need to buy those 4 or 5 houses. So due to the fact that there's no more hard money in the space, there's a lot more inventory because all the people that were using hard money are now off the table because they don't have the cash or they don't have the resources to be able to raise that money. So I've been going and just doubling down on the single family home space with the turnkey business and just continuing to use that. And then once this thing clears up, once Freddie Mac starts lending more multifamily out and other lenders do as well, then I'll have flipped all those properties, 50, 60, 70 houses, and I'll have the cash to be able to go and buy another apartment.
The money you take from these investors, it's pretty, they're in the deal. It's not liquid. They can't cash out. How does that work? Do they own the property?
No, I own the property and they're just an investor and they just have a piece of paper that says they invested in this deal. That's
How do they get out? They don't have much control in the deal, it sounds like.
No control.
Yeah.
I'm in control of it, yeah. You don't want them in control. You don't want them to make decisions and all that kind of stuff. Especially with us, like, dude, every house we renovate is exactly the same way. Exactly the same paint color. Like, I've never made a design decision.
Vinyl floors.
And every single apartment I have, all 100 of them are the same too. Same flooring, because then I don't have to do any education. So it's like my contractor knows exactly what to do. Sometimes he'll email me weird stuff and what do you want to do with this? And then we'll normally just get rid of it and go back to the normal plan. But yeah.
Question?
Yeah,
thanks for being here today, but I was just wondering, since I know that you're investing in Ohio, Cleveland, are you residing there or are you in like a different area, part of California?
Yeah, I live in Culver City.
Is it close to Cleveland, Ohio? I'm just wondering because some investors have told in their seminars that investing in an area where you don't live could be a little harder than investing in the area that you live in and that you know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about that.
Yeah, no, I live in LA. So I invest out of state. I even bought 5 homes in Memphis before I even went there. So those first couple of houses I bought while I was still in college, I didn't even go out to the market. I just bought everything virtually, sight unseen, and just had certain people on the ground that I trusted, or I paid an inspector to go through the property. So no, the philosophy of you need to invest where you live, I don't believe in that. First of all, I don't know much about, like, for example, if I was going to go and walk a home, I wouldn't know anything. I wouldn't know what needs to be fixed. I wouldn't know what works, or what the hot water tank is busted, or if it's working or not. You know, like, there's so many things that I don't know about these properties where I can just leverage somebody else's experience instead. And so by going out of state and building a team out of state from people that actually know what the hell they're doing and what to look for in these homes, because they've been doing it for 30 years, that's going to be way better than me investing in my local market just because I know the neighborhood. I'm going to go and leverage somebody else's knowledge who already has a system and team in place, and I'm going to go leverage them instead.
Right. I see. And just going off of that, how did you like find your properties? What is your main source of property search?
Yeah. This website. Yeah. So when I started, I was just buying stuff in Memphis, and I would just buy stuff through the MLS, and you can go through and just find different areas that make sense. Trulia has a crime map you can leverage, but Zillow, Redfin, you can figure out rents through another website, like what a property is going to rent out for, by going here and typing in information about the address, how many bedrooms and baths, and you can figure out what the rents are. And then I also use all of this data here to figure out what properties are worth when I finish them, right? So that ARV that I was talking about, you can kind of figure it out with this kind of data. So we still use Zillow and Redfin every single day.
How did you build those relationships and gain that trust when investing out of state?
Man, that's a good question. It's put your money where your mouth is eventually, and know what you're talking about when you do have that conversation with them, right? And also just like cold calling and like just talking to people on the market is probably like a very important thing too. So you know, like, that you can trust that person, right? So they're gonna, depends. If you're calling like a listing agent, you have to like understand who you're talking to on the other line, right? So if you're talking to a listing agent, he's just going to try to sell you the house. If you're talking to a property management company, he's just going to try to sell you your property management services. But as soon as you ask the property management company, like, hey, do you have any contractors that can help me make you money by getting the house ready to go so that you can manage it? Okay, now that, like, that's something that's kind of out of his wheelhouse, but he would be able to work together with you. And also selling them on like the scale of it too is something that I started doing as well, which was like, hey, you know, I know you probably get 100 phone calls from Californians all day about investing in Memphis, but I'm actually trying to build a portfolio for my family, and I want to buy a house a month, and here's the money to show it. The first apartment building that I ever bought, I was emailing brokers on LoopNet a screenshot of my bank account and saying, hey, I know you get emails like this all the time, but you know, I actually have money and I'm actually ready to go, and I'm not using hard money and other people's money. Like, I got the cash in the bank, send me what you got. This is what I'm looking for, right? So you got to just stand up from the crowd, and trusting them on the ground. I would trust them with a small project at first. Remember, the first house I did, $5,000 rehab, man, it was carpet and paint. There's nothing else. I mean, it'd be very hard to screw that up. And so it was more about just like their timeline. Did they stick to the budget? Did they do what they say they were going to do? And if they mess up a $5,000 project, I guarantee they're going to mess up a $50,000 project. So keeping it very light and easy on your first project is what I would recommend as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Also, how much did you use Bigger Pockets as a resource? Because people have actually reached out to me. They see my Bigger Pockets profile. So how much do you use that network?
Yeah. Bigger Pockets is fantastic. The podcasts are really good to learn from. The network is great. If you go and like, I think when I was first, like that first year, I had a daily thing that I would go and like make 20 posts on Bigger Pockets. So I was just trying to get my name out there to like people kind of would know who I was and what the hell I was doing. I think the more that you post on there, I think it's really an untapped area. I still get leads from Bigger Pockets because I've made like 2,000 posts now on Bigger Pockets from many years ago. And so I still get leads. I probably have 15 messages in there now that I haven't gone through, just with people from posts from me talking about Cleveland 3 years ago, you know?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Question?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you would cold call agents and contractors. What kind of questions would you ask them to qualify them for your hands on the ground?
Yeah, good question. So if I were to do it, I messed up calling the agents. I probably shouldn't call agents. If you start calling agents, you'll realize 95% of them have no idea what investing is or what numbers are supposed to look like. They're just there to show houses and to get their commission check. That's it. They don't care about anything else, in my opinion, after calling 250 of them. I even had people, there's a lot of stories I have from those 250 phone calls. But if I were to do it over again, I would call property management companies. So I would type whatever market you want to go into, Indianapolis property management, and I would I'd go like this. And I would just call every single one of these property management companies. Hey, my name is Antoine Martel. I'm a real estate investor from California. I'm looking to invest in Indianapolis. I see you guys have a property management company. I'm looking to buy some homes in Indianapolis and blah, blah, blah. You start the conversation. How many homes do you manage? You can even do this, like, and you could download a list of questions that you're supposed to ask a property management company. I mean, this is literally what I did. And then it was really just asking those questions. So you kind of got a feel of it. And after, it's going to take some time. You're going to be nervous on the first 5-10 phone calls, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to know, like, you're going to see the differences once you have those 10 or 20 phone calls. Like, wow, this person really stood out. This person really understood what I was trying to do. And that's what I would recommend, is just start calling people and learning about the market. Before you call, do some research on the market you're investing in. Like, go and do that stuff that I was talking about Cleveland. Like, oh, who are the major employers? What are some good neighborhoods? Where is the crime located? Where can I buy properties that are going to cash flow? Like, do all that research beforehand, then call property management companies so that you can ask them, oh, what kind of neighborhoods are you having the most success managing? What kind of rents do you get over there? Do you guys have any agents on your team that can help me find properties? And then explain to them what you're trying to do. Okay, cool. Cause I'm trying to do the BRRRR strategy. So I'm trying to buy the homes, rehab them. I want you guys to then come in and rent them out for me. And then I want to manage those long-term. So explain that process to them, and you'll see there'll be a clear winner after you have 10 or 15 conversations with those people about who you should be moving forward with. It's going to be night and day who the right person is for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, this is Julian again. Let me ask you another question. I find it awesome that you don't like realtors. I hate them as well. And so I've been working on this program, this platform, a website where we're basically trying to replace the realtor, and it's similar. Like, recently they've been coming out with these new things like iBuy, Open Door, Really, do you know what I'm talking about? Or Homey?
Yep.
So what's your thought on where the industry is going? Do you see a future there? Things like that.
Yeah, there's going to be no such thing as a realtor anymore.
Yes. Okay. And how do you envision it? Like, cause like transaction coordinators are important.
Which can be a VA in the Philippines for $3.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of other things that seem a little harder to replace.
Yeah, I mean, title companies, so like all the legal documentation. So title companies, transaction coordinators, just a lot of pain in the ass work back and forth, but like showings, open
Yes.
houses, all going to be gone. So
My mom
we
can do
can-
it.
Yeah. Well, like for example, I've sold 150, 200 homes in the last couple of years, and I've never used an agent one time. Right.
Well,
Not
I thought you use agents on the buying side, but not the selling side.
okay. On the buying side, yeah, we do use agents. Correct.
Uh-huh.
But that's just because, yeah, on the buying side, we do use agents. On the selling side, though, when I go and sell a property, I don't use an agent. Never have. Never will use an agent.
Perfect.
So what I think is going to happen too is like the first thing I think is going to be gone is leasing agents, which are, how a lot of people get into this real estate agency kind of game is by leasing out units or homes or whatever. It's completely unnecessary. And I think the coronavirus thing is speeding up the process.
Yes.
Because what's happening right now is that people don't want to go and talk to a leasing agent. It doesn't make any sense. Just give me the lockbox code. Just send me a link where I can schedule my walkthrough appointment when nobody else is there. And that's what's happening right now. So, and I think that's going to continue happening after COVID. That people are like, wow, why did I even ever call a leasing agent or call a realtor to find a house to live? I can just go on hotpads.com, click a link, and set up an appointment. And I get a code texted to me, and I can go at any time of day, 24 hours a day. I don't need to make a schedule now with this leasing agent. So I think it's going to start there, and it's going to slowly move into open houses. Then once that's happened with open houses, then the people listing the homes are going to be like, well, I don't even need a realtor anymore. I can just go create an account and list my house. So I think that's what's going to happen eventually.
And you mentioned COVID. I find it interesting too, because a lot of these companies are realizing they can hire talent anywhere, right? And I'm looking at markets like San Francisco, this market I'm super familiar with. If the talent goes elsewhere and say, we can hire people in Dallas, they can work remotely, then we might not have our inflated numbers anymore.
Yep. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is going to speed up that process. I've been saying that for the last couple of years. I think that there's a lot of kids I even graduated with at LMU who are living at their parents' house, and they don't like it. It's fine to live with your parents. I would do it to save the money, but a lot of people are living with their parents or like in a very expensive apartment they can't afford in LA. If they can get a virtual job, I think many of them are going to start thinking, wow, if I just moved to Nashville or Austin, and those are two great places that have already blown up, right? And they've kind of put the Midwest on the map, but that's just the beginning. These other markets where Cleveland and Memphis, which, none of us would be like, oh, I'm going to move to Memphis next month. Mm-hmm. But I think in 3 or 5 years, once you see what they're actually have in the works and in process, I think a lot of us in our age group are going to actually start to reconsider due to the price point, and then also having all the stuff that they're building there because it is so cheap. It's going to make it worthwhile for us to move.
I find it, but it's kind of, so I was a firm believer in, stay in the market you live in. But then there's this argument that you're bringing up, right? Maybe the market has plateaued, the growth is no longer there. Unlike these new areas we're seeing like Dallas, Texas, all these places. So I just so it sounds like you're doing this all remotely, huh?
Yep.
That's funny. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I go to the markets probably once every quarter. And that's not even to check that's not even to like, how's the contractors doing? It's nothing like that. It's like to show face with the team on the ground that is like working their ass off and to show them that I'm still a real person.
Yeah. You're a real person.
And to take them to dinner. That's it. Or I'll fly out to like, if I'm buying a huge apartment building, then I'll go like while I'm under due diligence to go do the walkthrough. That's it. The whole turnkey business is all remote. We don't even have an office. I'm at home right now. And then all the employees work from home as well.
Interesting. Well, hey, I'm about to head out. My name's Julian. I'm gonna text you. I saw your number on there.
All right, cool.
And I appreciate everything, man. Thank you.
All right. See you, man.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get back to these. Does anybody else have a question, or I can go through the texts?
I actually had a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I understand that, like you said, you started off with $40,000 in college, right?
Yep.
So did you look into any other markets? Like when I go on Bigger Pockets, I've heard like people start their business off like mobile homes and other platforms that might not cost as much. Did you ever look into those, or were you just like, I'm gonna go into like straight residential single family homes?
Yeah, I actually looked at buying mobile homes in LA or in California in general. And so what I found though was with the mobile homes is that a lot of the times, like if you wanted to buy a singular mobile home, then you weren't able to rent it out and stuff like that. So like if you pretty much owned the mobile home, you had to live in it and you couldn't rent it out. So I was calling like probably for a couple of months. I tried to figure that out, and I probably called not every single, but I called a lot of complexes in LA and even in the Bay Area, and a lot of them just had that same rule. And so I just kind of gave up on mobile homes.
Okay, I see. And then like I heard like in the beginning, you were also talking about like you wanted to go into wholesaling and then you like dodged it, or I don't really know how that went, but like what was like your experience with wholesaling if there was any?
Yeah, so wholesaling is not what all the people on Instagram say it is. Making 10 grand a month with no money. Trust
So
me,
Maxwell guy is fake.
No, he's not fake, but it's a lot of work.
Okay.
And a lot more expensive than maybe he makes it seem. Not just him. He's a good guy, but it's a lot harder than a lot of people are portraying. For example, in January, I started wholesaling. Since then, I hired 2 people full time. Since then, we've been able to scale up to a point, but now we're what month are we? May. So we're 5 months into the year, and we've probably done like 4 or 5 deals, right? So that's with 2 people full time. One of them a full time developer, and one of them a full time marketing person just trying to sell the houses and stuff. And so that's with 2 people full time plus my real estate knowledge. In 6 months, 5 months, we've been able to do like less than 10 deals, right? So imagine if you're by yourself, going to college full time, trying to figure this thing out. You don't have me or my experience or my data, right? It's just really difficult to get started. And so there's also a lot of money that a lot of people are not portraying. I think that being in California, we're at a disadvantage. So Maxwell's, he's in Texas. So he can literally drive around and like houses in his area are like 100 grand. Here, me and you cannot do that. Our homes are, $1 million, $2 million. It's like those people trying to wholesale those deals is next to impossible. I know people in LA that spend $25,000 a month to get one wholesale deal. So if you have a couple $100,000 to spend on marketing, then yeah, wholesaling in California could be a good option. But it's much more difficult if you're not local. And maybe wholesaling is one of those things that, if you do have a limited budget, but you live in one of those markets, then you can do like driving for dollars, which is way more efficient than what we're doing right now, which is cold calling and cold texting.
Okay, all right. And then like I just had like one last question, if that's okay.
Yep.
So I'm like pretty familiar with Bigger Pockets because I feel like that's the most mainstream, but did you have any other like resources or platforms that you referred to when you began?
That's probably the best one that I would recommend. And just like listening to the podcast, there's like a bunch of stories on the podcast too about how people got started and stuff like that. So I would recommend that as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, I have a question.
Yep.
So I know your primary focus right now is on your MartelTurnkey and your apartment buildings that you buy and hold. Other than that, do you have single family homes that you buy and hold, or is that just any single family home you buy, you flip, and then you sell as part of your turnkey?
Yeah. So when we started, we were keeping them and holding them long term, and that's what the goal was. But then over time, as I built up that list of turnkey buyers, I started just selling those properties. So now I think we hold like less than 10 homes. We just sold a couple, and we've just been using that cash to buy apartments. So we've been going into the apartment building side of things instead of the single family homes.
Got it. And then, so if so your buyers right now from your turnkey business, obviously when you're selling it to them, you're selling it at the market price or just slightly below market price. Are they afraid of the decline in market value? Or
Yep.
probably not, because the only thing because the decline of market value due to COVID-19, or are they not scared of the decline in prices because they're focusing mostly on the cash flow?
They're scared of everything. So it's just another rebuttal that we need to answer when we have that phone call with that person. So yeah, they're scared of it all. They're scared of the tenants not paying rent and them not being able to evict them. They're scared of the market completely crashing to the ground. They're scared of these, tenants, not being able to pay rent as soon as they move in and stuff like that. And so it's just working through those on a case-by-case basis. And, we try to not sell the unsellable. But in my personal opinion, I don't think that these kinds of properties and this sub $100,000 price point are going to get hit all that hard by the COVID. We collected 95 to 100%. It was like 97% of our total rents for the last couple of months. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're not going to be able to collect rent. You'll collect 40%. We're at 95, 97%. So there hasn't been any decrease in rents paid. There hasn't been any decrease on move-ins. There's actually been like an increase in people who want to rent these properties that are rented out for, that's expensive. But like some of the homes we rent out for, this is like $650 a month, right? For a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And so a lot of these people with their stimulus checks are able to move into our properties. A lot of them are selling their expensive home or moving out of that luxury condo and going into properties like this because they are way more affordable. So that's kind of what I've been saying for the last couple of years too, is that during the times of recession like this, or what we may go into shortly, is a lot of people that were spending $2,000 or $3,000 on an A-class luxury condo downtown Cleveland. They may lose their job, or they may be scared about the future. So their lease is up. They're going to go and rent a place for $1,000 and save that money. And they're going to move into one of our properties instead of going to that, very expensive A class. So that's why we try to stay in these B and C class neighborhoods.
Got it. Okay. And then how about in terms of, I know you're doing some houses out in Baltimore as well. Do you plan on going back out there as well too, or?
No, we're actually going to scale up instead in Memphis, Tennessee, instead of going to Baltimore. So we tried Baltimore. It was just very difficult for us to get any type of, we did a couple, and then it was just hard for us to get inventory after that. So we've kind of stayed away from Baltimore.
So it was just only the inventory issue. That's the only reason why you.
Yeah, it was an inventory issue. It's still on the website, and we may go back into it, but right now it's Memphis and Cleveland are the main focus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the BRRRR strategy.
All right, let's do it.
So do you have a certain checklist that you kind of check off before you go, the BRRRR route as a buy and hold investor?
Checklist, not that much. I mean, like, if your numbers can match this or beat this or be close to this, I mean, I would pull the trigger. And so this is the math that I would run for any property you're looking at. So what are you going to buy for? Have this in a bid from a contractor. This you can estimate. And then this is something you're going to have to use Zillow for, right? So you're going to be like, oh, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath.
By searching comps, correct?
Say it again.
By searching comps?
Yep, exactly. So you're going to search comps to come up with this. And then, then you can kind of do this math backwards and figure out, okay, what kind of cash on cash return am I going to hit? And so if this is over 20%, I would do the deal.
Okay.
I have a question. So hey, Antoine. Yes. So my name is Dan, and when you were starting off, right? So looking back now, what are some things that you wish you knew before you started?
Oh man. Well, first of all, to go out of state directly. So I probably wasted 1.5 years trying to invest in California or invest locally, and it just didn't work for me and my budget. If you have $1 million or your parents do or something like that, by all means, like you can probably kill it in California. I just couldn't do it. So if you have, less than $100,000 or somebody or you have no money at all, I would definitely recommend going out of state and looking out of state instead. And so that would have saved me a ton of time. And then also, like, the biggest thing I would recommend is just looking at your resources and then matching your resources with the best strategy for you, right? So how much money do you have? Who do you know? And then what's your goal? Or what's your parents' goal? Or like somebody close to you that maybe you can be their boots on the ground, who's going to manage their whole real estate portfolio, right? So those are the things that I would look into. And match your resources. So match all those things, your time, money, who you know, with the best strategy that makes sense. So is it out of state flips? Is it BRRRR strategy? Is it wholesaling? And that's kind of how I would start it. And I would literally just like write it down on a piece of paper and try to figure out what's the low hanging fruit for you to get into the real estate game. You know what I'm saying? So your end goal might be to do apartment buildings like what I'm doing, which is what my end goal was. But in order to get there, first I had to buy a single family home for 35 grand, do the BRRRR strategy 10 times. Then I had to sell 100 single family homes turnkey until I was able to buy that first apartment, right? But if I hadn't started and just bought that first property, I would still be looking for that first apartment today because I would have had no money, I would have had no network, and nobody would have trusted me to do that first apartment building.
Okay. So you're saying right now, like, you're trying to build capital through residential and then trying to enter the commercial space?
Yep.
Okay, makes sense. I've also started noticing that Manifest members are leaving. So sorry to interject just real quick. We do have a Shark Tank entrepreneur coming out tomorrow. So look through our Manifest at UCI Instagram. Other than that, like, thank you so much, Antoine, for answering my questions. Like, you're a really big inspiration for
Thank you.
Like people trying to get started.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of sub members are leaving, but we're gonna stay on the call because this is interesting. So thank you, Antoine. But tomorrow you guys are all invited at 4:00 on Instagram if you want more details. But yeah, that's it for the announcement. We have a Shark Tank entrepreneur who might be interesting for you.
I have a question, Antoine.
Yeah.
At the beginning, when you first started, I mean, by the way, I've been following you, man, for like a year, I think year and a half on Instagram. So seeing your stories and all that pretty much daily. So I know, I remember like a year ago, you were just buying like single family homes, but now over the last couple of months, I'm seeing you buying now apartments and all that. So that's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
And something that I read, I remember, I think in bigger podcasts or at least in one of the podcasts, is that they were saying at the beginning that sometimes it makes sense to buy a home or a deal either through an LLC, or sometimes under your personal name. I mean, in regards mainly, that way when you go to the bank and refinance it to get, the loan. I mean, can you like explain more about it? Like how, I mean, or sometimes why it makes sense to do it on an LLC or just under your name?
Yeah. So if you're gonna do this, like do the BRRRR strategy, you're probably gonna have to leave it in your personal name. The reason why is because when you go to the bank to get this loan, they won't lend this to an LLC. It has to be lent to a person. So this loan has to be to your personal name in order for you to do the refinance. In order to do a refinance, you already have to be on title. So like you buying this property in, Main Street LLC, buying it, rehabbing it, that's the current owner on title, and then going to the bank and be like, okay, I want to refinance this. And they're like, oh, who's on title? Oh, Main Street LLC. And they're like, we don't lend to LLCs. So you got to buy it in your own name, Luis. Luis is going to buy the property, be on title, rehab it, rent it out. And then when you go to the bank, it's like, hey, I'm going to get a loan on this property that I own. And then they'll be able to give you the loan. So if you're doing this process, I'd probably just leave it in your personal name. And there's like a lot of talk about online about like liability with doing stuff on your personal name and stuff, but you can get around that by buying like an umbrella insurance policy.
Okay.
Another thing I want to comment on real quick, Luis, what you can also do is, you can, sorry, I just blanked out. Never mind. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
So do you only recommend the BRRRR strategy if you own the property outright?
No. How else would you have it not outright though? Who's currently lending on it? Like an equity investor?
Well, I guess so. If you go back to so if you take a look at if you go back to the slide that you're at before,
this one.
So the purchase price is $25K. So you're paying that straight cash and everything. The total cost is all done through straight cash, right? And then you do the cash out refinance. Do you only recommend doing that if you own, or if you all that total cost amount is through straight cash, right? If you
can do it either way. So like, for example, if you use like, for example, this like joint venture person, right? Or like a private money lender kind of thing, and they funded this for you. Oh shit. And they funded this for you, then you can still go and do the refinance. You can even get a loan.
So how about if that purchase price was funded through a conventional loan?
Yeah, that's going to be okay. First of all, this would be too low to get a conventional mortgage, I believe. So that would be probably a pain point. That's why I've resorted to everything cash, man. Because this, like, the lenders are not going to even do loans like less than 50 grand, for example.
Got it.
Or not less than 50 grand, less than 25 grand, I mean. So that's going to be a challenge. Let's say you went like unconventional and got hard money or something. Then 100% you're going to want to do a refinance and you're going to need to. But if you do this conventionally, normally if you like buy something conventionally, rehab it, and then want to get a refinance conventionally with the same financing, they're going to have what's called seasoning periods. So they're going to want you to be like, you can't go and get a conventional loan and then like 2 months later, like refinance the thing. They're like, what the hell, man? We just gave you this loan, because it's all in the same record and same course and stuff like that. So those are just a couple of things that I would keep in mind if you wanted to do that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No worries.
Coming back to that last point, you could transfer the LLC after you refinance it, and then that will remove like your liability. And like, for example, if you're doing that in California, the ADA has a lot of rules, and my partner's a property manager, and he deals a lot with sometimes owners having to pay out lawsuits with the ADA for compliance issues. So it removes your liability and kind of protects you. But like Antoine said, you have to go through as a person your own person to actually get the loan.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
and real quick, Antoine, in that, and do you think I currently own a house? I bought a house where I live here in Orange County back in 2012. So I mean, I have a loan for like $500,000 right now, pay the mortgage and all that. Will I still qualify? Let's say if I want to, start doing this and buy, like a 50, 80,000 and do the whole refinance, 80-20. I mean, obviously when they check my credit, it'll be okay. You already have a house. I mean, always.
Yeah. So that since you already have a house, it's fine. They're just your only pain point with that is going to be your debt to income. So now you have this $500,000 mortgage. Does your debt to income ratio still look good for Luis to get another loan? And so is this new loan going to mess up your debt to income? That's the only challenge with it. So you should still be able to get financing if your debt to income stays above water.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then also, this is where I make my LLCs. A lot of people don't get started in real estate because they don't, or they like think it's hard to make an LLC. You can make one in 30 minutes for a couple $100. So don't let not having an LLC stop you from investing, please. And I would do it in Wyoming, by the way.
Why in Wyoming?
More protection, non-piercing state, cheap as hell. So there's a form in the state, domestic Wyoming LLC. It costs $100, and then there's other fees that you have to pay for and stuff. But I mean, literally $100. In California, I think it's much more expensive to make one. And a lot of people use like different sites than this. This one's been the cheapest website I've found.
And what ties do you have to have with Wyoming?
Say it again.
What ties do you have to have in Wyoming? Do you have to have okay.
They're gonna hook you up with what's called a register agent, which costs like $100 a year. So it's not expensive at all. And so that registered agent, pretty much the only requirement is that you have a physical address. And so this service provides a physical address for you. And so when you go and like fill out this form to like create the LLCs, they're going to hook you up with that registered agent, and you can go through just the whole process right here.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Yep.
I have a quick question on your BURP strategy. What kind of rehabs do you typically do? And do you ever go through any permit processes?
Let's see. Permit process, no. If you can stay away from the permit process, by all means do that. What kind of rehabs do we do? Like I said, most of our homes look exactly the same. So this is like the kind of properties that we'll renovate, single family home. And so hardwood floor, new paint, updated bathroom, updated kitchen. And then normally we have the tenants bring in their own appliances so that it removes the liability from us. So this is this is the kind of renovations that we do. Super clean, super easy, super simple, nothing complicated. And so every single house that we do, and then we also like list the amount of renovations that we did do on the property as well.
How often do you guys do plumbing or go into any structural issues?
Structural issues, hell no. We probably bought this house for structural issues, I won't touch it. Plumbing issues, depending on the size of the plumbing issues, then I'll touch it or I won't touch it. But there you go. Let's rent it out. Let's see what I bought it for. So I bought it for 37, renovated it, and now I'm selling it for 90,000 bucks, and it's rented out for $950 a month. So that same house, I just bought it 316, so 2 months ago, for 40, and now I'm selling it, and it's renovated and selling it for 90. So and plumbing issues, it depends. As long as the numbers work, it's fine with me, right? But a lot of the times, like structural issues could cost $37,000.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So it just doesn't make sense.
I know I've seen a lot of flips where like they'll update the plumbing, but I guess all depends how it works into the budget and what your margins are.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
And also like the last thing, like new plumbing. Sorry, hold on. The last thing too, like you want to do stuff that increases the value, right, Mitchell? So like there's certain things like, oh, if I replace the plumbing stack, the appraiser is not going to go and like look at the plumbing stack and be like, wow, it's brand new. Now the house is worth 10 grand more. Like they don't do that kind of thing. Or anything in the basement or anything in the attic. Normally they're not even going up there, right? So you kind of literally have to literally when an appraiser goes out to my property, I copy and paste this. I'm like, this is what we did. And you have to really spell it out for them. But if I wrote plumbing stack in here, then okay, great. You might get like, if you spent $5 grand, you get $5 grand in value. But with stuff like a new kitchen and bathroom, I'm pretty much doubling my money on these kind of things. So you want to do the things that are going to be the money makers, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much are you usually spending in these renovations in your single family Cleveland homes, like in the Cleveland area, the Maple Heights? How much are you usually spending?
I mean, anywhere from like 20, 30, 40,000 bucks.
Okay.
Yeah, it really depends. The lowest we'll spend is 10 grand, and the most I've ever spent is probably like 60 grand.
Quick question about how you were going about doing LLCs. When you do LLCs and it's tax time, how is that structured? Is it all under one umbrella, or is everything done separate? And as far as, like tax deductions, write-offs, and things of that nature.
Yeah, so you're going to need a really good CPA. But what we do is we have, for example, we have MartelTurnkey LLC, which is the umbrella. And then underneath those umbrellas, and this LLC owns MTK1, MTK2, blah, 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 blah. So all of these LLCs are owned by this main LLC here. And so when we go and file our taxes, it's just we file this one tax return. because it's the owner and it's just going to pass through right to this LLC. And so that's how we do it. So that at the end of the year, it just keeps it super simple and everything flows up into this one. But that's if you're doing a lot of projects, right? Like if you're just buying rental properties or doing BRRRR, you probably don't even need to think about that for a while. But yeah, as you scale or do a bunch of projects or buy apartments, like we created, for example, Martel Real Estate. And so that LLC owns all of our apartment buildings, so that when we go and submit our tax returns, we submit one for our apartments and one for our turnkey business.
Okay, and another question I have that I've been wondering is, if you're not on the W-2, you're not really working, but you have money to invest, how do you go about that and go with the banks and get lending?
Yeah, that's hard. I would recommend, you're probably going to have to use somebody like this. I would look into these guys. Every hard money lender is shut down right now. Well, if you find one that's open, let me know. But the hard money lenders I've talked to are all out of business and shut down. So, but these guys have, for example, a rental property program that a lot of my clients have used. And it's an asset-based loan or asset-based rental property loan. So it's just based on that property. Oh yeah, see, look, has put a temporary hold on all rental loans. And so there's certain lenders out there who will lend to you, whether you, regardless of your income. They'll still look at your credit score, as you can see here. But then the debt to income for the borrower is nothing. So this is like something that you could look into, whether it's turnkeys or doing like a BRRRR strategy or something like that. You're going to have to find and build a relationship with a company like this, like Lima One Capital. So they're called asset-based lenders.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question regarding like the starting point of your career. How did you find out like Ohio would be, or like Cleveland would be the area you invest in? Like, did you do a lot of market research, or how did you get to the point where you decide which market you want to work on?
Yeah, good question. Let me show you what research I did. Oops. So as you can see, so this is something that like kind of the research that I did about Cleveland to figure out, and you can copy it for any market, right? So, okay, does it have a diverse workforce? First question. So you can go, so does it have a diverse workforce? You can find this stuff on Google, just Bureau of Labor Statistics. They have this kind of information. So is it a diverse workforce if, for example, these major employers or education and health. So if Cleveland Clinic goes out of business and leaves Cleveland for some reason, then how many jobs are we lost, or what's the maximum amount of jobs that could be lost through this? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main things. Who are the major employers? What do you think about the major employers? Do you think they're going out of business? Or do you think they're going to be around for a while? So is Progressive going to stick around? You know, in Memphis, it's like FedEx, right? So, and is Cleveland Clinic going to stick around? What do you think, and what are your thoughts about those? Then start doing, research on these markets. How long have they been, on these employers? How long have they been in this market for? Are they doing any expansions? Are they doing anything, any large projects that they're working on? Then through that research, I found Cleveland Clinic was actually rated second best hospital in the US, which is a good sales point. Then you want to look at just the cash flow as a whole. So the median sales price in Cleveland, Ohio is $57,000. The median rent is $850 a month. And so what we calculate is called a rent to value ratio. And you want this to be over 1%. And that's going to be a cash flowing market. Figure out who, just little facts about the Fortune 500 companies. And then these are other little things that we found. You also probably want to look at like population growth, job growth, and different things like that. However, for most of my markets, if you go and look at that kind of data, you're going to be underwhelmed. And it's because I'm trying to get into those markets before they do explode or blow up, right? So I don't want to invest in Austin, Texas or something like that that's already exploded and had a huge growth. I want to invest before Austin, Texas blew up and stuff like that. So those are just the things that I would look for when researching the market and to at least start off with.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I had a question, Antoine.
Yep.
My name is Rivera. So it sounds like, how you purchase distressed single family houses and then pretty much remodel them and bring them up. It sounds like you're working like a private equity firm. Like, I know that they buy distressed businesses or up and coming businesses. Have you thought about and eventually they sell them later once the numbers make sense on the papers? Have you thought about turning your firm into or your LLC into a private equity firm?
Oh, no. I don't know what that would entail, but it sounds like a lot of lawyers and a lot of paperwork, and that doesn't really sound that fun.
And so going back to my FHA question,
Yeah.
even if I were to put 20% down, I've been doing the same. I've been on Zillow, day in and day out, and I've seen some. I understand not all condos allow renovations, but I found some that are, and they're well below, $250,000 in LA, and
Oh wow.
yeah, and so I mean the numbers make sense to me, but like I said, if I'm willing to pay the premium, and I've seen the after rent value, they're 2,200 still a month. Those numbers
Yeah.
make more sense to me, and being local. I know some of the other attendees mentioned that on Bigger Pockets or other webcasts they've seen they've heard the same expression of buy local for your first investment.
Yeah.
Is there any aside from the numbers making sense, is you touched upon the way the market's headed, you wouldn't invest in LA. Is there anything that like the numbers don't say that is something that you see coming up ahead to why I shouldn't invest in downtown LA?
Yep. Landlord tenant laws. So like eviction processes.
Like AB
Here.
1482?
Say it again.
Like AB 1482, you can't increase the rent, or like the 90-day moratorium.
Yeah, those two things. And then also, rent control. So I don't have to deal with rent control. So like all my apartment buildings, I bought them and the rents were like $450, $425 a month. Now they're $850 a month. You can't even do that in LA. If tenants don't pay rent over there on the 5th day of the month or 10th day of the month, I can give them a 3-day notice to pay or leave. So it's just better for business to, like if I'm starting a real estate business, I'm going to go and do real estate and build that real estate business in a place that's going to be the most beneficial and the easiest for me to work in, right? So those are kind of my thoughts. Plus then all the numbers pointing in that direction too. It just makes a lot more sense. And also condos, I'd be worried about the HOA fees, because sometimes you can make $2,200 a month, but then you forget about the $500 HOA, and it can really kill your numbers and cash flow too.
Yeah, because from the biggest concern for me, like as far as rent control goes, was AB 1482, where you could only raise the rent 5% plus inflation, which is CPI, so it's about 7% a year. But from because I work at a real estate firm, commercial real estate, and what I've learned is that once you actually evict the tenant, cash with the keys, and you throw someone else in there, you could start to rent off wherever you like.
Are you sure about that?
No, I'm not positive. So that was my that was my question.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that I think it may be possible if you spend a certain amount of money on renovations, but I think that if, for example, a tenant left or whatever the case may be, then I don't even think that you can go and increase I don't know. That's something you're going to definitely have to look into, but
I can make a quick comment on that. My partner actually he owns Crystal Property Management, they rent a lot, manage like 3,500 units in the LA County area, and if you pay a certain amount for renovations, if you do a major renovation, you have to look at each individual county's code to find what you need. Everything needs to be like permitted, and California has the worst permits. You have to do it for windows, anything over $500 in a bathroom, any plumbing.
Oh my God.
So there's some cities that are really lax on it, like I know Gardena is pretty lax on it, but also Compton is another one that people are doing a lot of flips and they are doing the BRRRR process. We see that, but they're more strict on it. So you really have to like learn and see exactly what kind of permits are needed and what actually meets the criteria for a major renovation in whatever city you're investing in.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, for reference, in Memphis, we don't need a permit for we don't need a permit for anything less than $25,000 of work. So we can do pretty much anything that, our normal renovations are 25 grand and so, or less. So we never even have to file for permits. You only need permits really if you're going to do something major or something that involves the city, or do some city sidewalk or something like that. Then we got to get the city involved. But $500 every time you got to do a permit, probably costs $500 to file a permit.
I have another question.
Cool.
So your business is more of a fix and flip business. So isn't like the profit that you got from like selling it categorized as active income? So you have to pay tax on that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's not much of what you can really work on it, right? On tax strategies and everything.
Nope. So there is one thing that you can do, which is what we did. So for example, like let's say everything's in one umbrella, right? So that umbrella has a flipping business. So you're flipping houses and making all these capital gains, which is, gets taxed easily and hard. So what you can do then is you can use those capital gains or use that cash that you've created with those capital gains to then go and buy an apartment building. And then on the apartment building, you can do oh my God, you can do an accelerated depreciation. And so with that, you'll be able to, for example, like let's say we made $1 million on the capital gains, but then I can go buy a building and I can write off with accelerated depreciation because I bought a big apartment building with all that cash. Now I can go and write off directly against $1 million of profits or whatever, all of the accelerated depreciation. So that's how we've been able to save a bunch of money, is through this method. But you got to do like flipping houses at scale to be able to have enough money to be able to buy a big enough building to be able to create a big enough of an offset, if that makes sense. Good question though.
Question is, I haven't looked, but I probably will research this later. But what kind of cap rates are the most attractive in Cleveland, Ohio? I know you've been posting about Baltimore as well. It's a pretty sweet spot. And do you do, when you take in your renters, are they under any kind of Section 8 programs?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, so we don't do Section 8. We all do market-based tenants. And then cap rates for single family or residential, like anything from 1 to 4 units, is normally we look for like 8 to 10% cap rate. Anything higher than that's going to be a risk. Anything lower than that's going to be too expensive.
Risk as in
bad area,
neighborhood,
something's wrong. Yeah, risky neighborhood, high crime. I can find you 20 caps in Cleveland, but you're not going to be able to collect any rent on them. So it's kind of just that 8 to maybe 11, but 8 to 10 would kind of be a good range of something that's going to that would be something that you'd actually have a good tenant in place. And yeah, that we don't do the Section 8 thing. So we do all market-based tenants.
I have a question on a particular zip code or a zone. What do you use to classify like that jump from a C to a B neighborhood?
Oh man,
is it just a map or a Trulia? Is that kind of where you
can ask 100 people, you get 100 different answers. It really depends on the market too. I think one of the biggest things for me is crime.
Okay.
So like properties that have very low crime or no crime at all, like no crime at all would probably be considered a B class neighborhood. Properties with, you know, a little bit of crime splattered here and there, maybe C class. But then every market's a little bit different. So like a B class property, but like a B class property in Cleveland, you know, could be different than a B class property in Memphis, right? So all these different markets have different scales. And so if you new to a market or you don't understand a market, the biggest thing I would just stay away from would be high crime areas. And then you're gonna be on the safe side, whether it's called C class or B class or whatever word it is or letter it is. Just stay away from the crime and just stay in areas where the cash flow makes sense. And so for me, that would be less than $150,000 ARV. You know, where the properties do cash flow and where there's no crime, and close to jobs, that's kind of the sweet spot we look for.
Cool. So I live in Long Beach, Antoine. It's either I use my FHA to buy a multi-unit, you know, ideally a 4-unit here in SoCal, or I go out of state and use a conventional. I have a question on the burst strategy. If I were to use a FHA, my first, you know, the first go, are there any implications when I go to refinance or, you know, throughout the whole process?
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to refinance within the first year or 2 years. I think for FHA, you have to be living in that property for at least a year, I believe. You're going to want to look into it. But yeah, that's something that I would look into and ask before you sign on that dotted line of those questions, because your lender is going to know more.
The seasoning period is typically a year, right? And on the
typically a year. Yeah, and then yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no worries. This is the crime map too I was talking about with Trulia. It's the best one that I've found, so that's what I would use.
Okay, sweet, man. I'll check it out.
Yep.
Antoine, I had another question.
Yep.
So what's your take on using an FHA loan to like house hack in California? Because I feel like, because I'm from Northern California as well, so I feel like when I come down to SoCal, I'm renting, so I'd rather be, you know, even when I take the FHA loan out, of course, my payments are going to be higher, but I'm willing to spend the extra money if I'm putting equity in the house.
And then how are you going to get the equity out of the house?
So ideally, ideally, I would want the property to appreciate so I could 1031 out into.
Yeah. See, that's a challenge with the FHA. So first of all, it's going to be in California. So like managing a tenant won't be fun. Second of all, you're going to have to be a property manager now and manage that tenant and do that kind of thing. Collect rent. If the tenant moves out, you have to clean it up. Now all the maintenance expenses are also on you. So I live in Culver City. I rent where I live. And I have a house with a couple of buddies and we split the rent, right? And so hot water tank, for example, went out 2 weeks ago. And so the landlord paid for it, right? I don't have to go and pay for all these expenses that are going to eat up my cash. So yeah, the FHA loan is a great strategy, and like it helps you get into and buy real estate that you're going to live into. But for me, just like looking at the numbers, it just made much more sense. Like I can beat LA's appreciation with my out-of-state rental properties by doing the burst strategy and doing everything out of state than banking on LA appreciating even more than it already has, right? So let's just say this was 20%, cash on cash return for my money. So is it a better investment to bank on the appreciation living in California and doing the FHA thing? Or is it better use of my cash, my limited cash, to go out of state and buy a turnkey or do a burst strategy or buy an apartment building? What's going to produce the highest return for me? Also, the thing I don't like about FHA is that I'm tied to an asset now. And the only way for me to get rid of it, like you said, was selling it. And when you sell something, you're going to hope it appreciates. But, what if it doesn't? Or what if it comes at the wrong time in the market? And what if the property doesn't appreciate? And certain things like that scare the hell out of me too, because now the only way that I can get access to my capital that I've been paying on for 1, 2, 3, 4 years is going to be by selling that and restarting the entire process. So the benefit of investing, not doing the FHA and house hacking and doing that kind of thing, is that I can continually refinance and move my money around, and it doesn't affect my life. Or where I'm living, or me moving and doing certain things like that. So it's a lot of stuff to think about. I've just had a lot of conversations with people that, did the house hacking route 10, 20, 30 years ago. And ever since they did that first house hack, before it was even called house hacking, they never invested in real estate after that, because of the experience with managing a tenant, handling all the maintenance issues, and finding new tenants, and then dealing with evictions and doing all this kind of stuff. It's just so many headaches that it made real estate not fun anymore, because you were literally in the weeds, and you're living in the weeds of your property and managing these tenants or tenant.
So looking at the numbers on the screen right now, your initial investment for this whole project was just a 2,000.
So the initial investment, no, it's going to be 50,000, whether it's your money or somebody else's.
And so the initial investment was your investor's money, correct?
Yep, it can be.
And you put the cash left in deal, which was a $2,000.
So let's just say I used my own money. So I bought it for 25, rehabbed it for 22. So I'm all in for 50, right? 50 grand of my pocket out.
Okay.
Once it's done, I'm going to go get a new loan on it. They're going to give me a loan for 48 grand. So I'm going to get a check from the bank for 48,000 bucks. So I'm going to have left in the deal 2 grand. So I'm going to have a house that has 2 grand of my equity in it. And then I'm also going to have, or of my cash in it. And then I'm going to have a $48,000 back in my bank account.
Okay. And who's going to be banking the 2760? That's you or your investor?
Normally at the refinance, I pay out the investor. You can work that out with the investor. That's why, again, I don't like hard money. With the investor, I can call Bob and tell him, hey, the property, we thought it appraised for 60, it appraised for 80. What do you want to do? Hey, the property appraised for 55. What do you want to do? Do you want to take over it? Do you want me to take over it? Do you want me to buy you out? It's very dependent on you and the investor, which is why it's great to kind of build that relationship with people that have cash.
One question relating to that. So when do you refinance? Right after you rehab? Is that when the refinance happens?
Once you rehab it and rent it out. So it's going to probably need to be rented out before they can do the refinance. They're going to want to see, since it's going to be an investment property loan, they're going to want to see that the property is making money. Not that it's going to affect their underwriting at all, because Fannie Mae is weird, but they still want to see that there's a tenant in place. So hopefully you have it renovated and rented out, and you have a lease in hand, and then you can go and start the refi process.
Does it take more than a year? How long does it take after you purchase and before you, when you can refinance?
So if you're going conventional Fannie Mae financing, it's 6 months of seasoning.
I see.
So the seasoning period is what slows you down. So I've never found that before, but seasoning. Oh, that's a different thing. That's why. So most banks, most big banks, are going to require 6 months of seasoning. If you use a local credit union, or the guy who was on the line earlier, who was using Lima One Capital, they have a 30-day seasoning period. So your goal, like if you're doing projects of this size, it's like buy the house, rehab it for the first month, rent it out for the second month. Then you collect cash flow for a couple of months and then refinance it out in month 6. So it should be a 6-month project if you're going the conventional route. What I did is I would buy it, rehab it in a couple of weeks, rent it out the next week. So like the project was all done in month 1. Then I would go to the lender or a local credit union because I was a college student, so I didn't have any income. And I would show them the lease and show them the property. Hey, can you give me a loan? Yeah, just pay for the appraisal, pay for the appraisal. And so I was able to do projects in like 30 or 60 days and just continue rolling.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yep.
Antoine, have you ever had to appeal an appraise?
Yeah, like probably 30% of the time.
Really?
Yeah, appraisers are horrible. Yeah. Yep. All the time.
And this 30% of the time happens in Cleveland? Or
in Cleveland and Memphis, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, appraisers, that's why this process is great if this happens.
Right.
If this doesn't happen, that's why you got to do your homework on this number. This has to be the most important thing that you make sure of. Even if rent is you're completely off, which is going to be pretty difficult. This is the number that can really screw you over.
Yeah, because then you can't pull the cash out. The velocity's a lot slower. Yeah.
Yep. So you just got to really understand how to run comps, and you can also leverage like an agent on the ground and get like a BPO or whatever it's called, broker's price opinion, to and they'll kind of pull a report from the actual MLS to like give you a value of that home.
And you can only appeal.
So what do you do?
You get something appraised, you can only appeal it once for the same property?
Yep.
Forever? Or is there a seasoning period on that?
I
I hope to never have to get there, but
you'll get there. You can appeal it one time for that appraiser. And then if that appraiser comes back with the same value, then you can go and buy typically another appraisal, but you're going to have to pay for a whole new report and a new person to go out to the property. The maximum amount of tries I've gotten is having 2 appraisers go out to the property. After that, then I think you're not able to do that for another, because I think appraisals are valid for 6 months. So then you'd have to retry in 6 months kind of thing. Or you can go try it with a new lender. So normally what I did, if it didn't appraise, I would just go talk to another lender and see what the hell we can do and figure out.
And how did the second time around, how do you make sure it's a little bit more effective? Do you send your property manager out with them, or do you fly out there and be like, hey dude, like this is like, this centers are fresh?
I know. So when I first started, I would send comps. So I would send 3 to 5 comps showing like what I thought the thing was worth. I would show like before and after photos if you have them. I would show like a whole list of like the biggest list you can possibly come up with of stuff that you handled on the property. Like put that in there too. And just like really give them a good story of why this home is worth this amount of money and like the time and money that was spent on doing it. If you know what the property is going to rent out for, if it is rented out, put that number in there, because they also do some stupid stuff that is irrelevant because they never use it, but they come up with a value based on the cash flow the property makes. And so sometimes they'll put that into consideration. But everything that you can besides the numbers is what I would give to the appraiser to just help push it along.
And these I appreciate it, man. These bullet points, we're concentrating on commercial, yeah?
Say it again. Hello?
Yeah. So these
Say that again?
These bullet points, Antoine, this is for commercial, correct?
Well, this is for a single family home.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Antoine, it's 5 minutes from 8. Do you want to take the last couple of questions? Oh, by the way, thank you so much for staying this late. It's like, I think everybody's really appreciating it. It's like it's of great value for everybody.
Yeah, people stuck around. Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think they're really engaged. Yeah, they love your presentation. What do you want to do? You want to stay until 8?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I actually got to head out. Antoine, thanks. It's been great. Really appreciate
Later,
chatting
Mitchell.
with you. So I'll follow
Later.
up with you and try to get in contact.
Later, bro.
Mateo, I'm from Manifest. We also just wanted to thank Antoine for taking his time, really educating a lot of us, especially myself, who didn't really know a lot about real estate. We love bringing entrepreneurial content to not only people from UCI, but all across, the country. It's really cool. A lot of schools are out here. So we just want to thank you for helping bolster this entrepreneurial journey and allowing students to realize that they have potential even while they're in college. And they can start their own.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Yeah, and this is I'm Rivera. I'm from Cal Poly Pomona. I just want to thank UC Irvine for letting us come in. Antoine, you've been a great help. You answered pretty much everyone's question. Sticking around.
Of
Definitely
course.
stay in contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Anton. Theory here from UCSD, Charlton Real Estate Organization. Really appreciate your time for today.
Absolutely.
A great bunch. A lot of inspiration and motivation too. We'll definitely keep in touch, and thank you again for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hey, Antoine, thanks for the invite. Appreciate everything. Appreciate the information. It's a wealth of knowledge. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks.
See ya.
Antoine, I do have 2 questions, brother, before we get out of here, man.
Let's go.
First, that with the COVID stuff, the loan to value, have you seen banks dropped percentage at the loan to value to 60, 70? I heard as low as 50.
Yeah, and some even went out of business. So yeah, it's happening across the board. I would just go talk to the lender that you're talking to or have been talking to or starting a conversation with and ask them. Every lender's different. Some hard money lenders in the rental property space have literally stopped lending.
Okay.
So if people are still lending, I would just ask them. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Fannie Mae in general, like the conventional loans, they haven't decreased their, the only thing they did was increase the credit score requirements for FHAs, but all the other things and all the other loans have remained pretty constant.
Okay. And once you hit the 10 conventional loans, you can no longer go into Fannie Mae, right? So that's when you just have to lean on a private lender, yeah? Union?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Credit union, private lender, like that Lima One Capital I shared, which is like an asset-based lender. So those kinds of things. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And unfortunately, I was late to this one, man. I seen it on your Instagram and I jumped up, and got on as fast as I could. So how is there another one scheduled from start to finish? Because I don't want to miss out on the first half.
Yes, you can. We are recording it and putting it on YouTube. Are you recording as well, Antoine?
No, I'm not.
So if all of you guys want to see this again, you can go at Real Estate Association at UCI.
Okay.
We're on YouTube. We just record all of our meetings.
Okay.
I'll post it here.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate, for the organizing this and, for everybody's time, Antoine. Keep it up.
Thanks, Jose.
This is Roxy from Cal Poly Pomona. I'd like to say thank you, UCI, for the invite, and Antoine for sticking around. It's been like 2 hours.
Of course.
So.
I know, I'm tired now.
Thank you for all the information.
Yeah, no worries. Have a good one. Thanks for coming.
You too. Bye.
See ya.
Antoine, I got a kind of general question for you, if you don't mind.
All right, let's go. Hello?
Manav, you're muted, man.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Really late. So hearing your entrepreneurial journey, just kind of wondering, what was the process? So before you started, you said you went to a seminar and you learned about real estate. So for people trying to get involved in entrepreneurship in general, what are kind of your basic advices? Do we find a mentor? Do we read up on the internet? How do you kind of know when you're ready to take that next step and start investing or start doing stuff for real?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody because everybody has, luckily I had a dad who had 50 grand and wanted to invest it and trusted me, right? So a lot of people don't have that. And I've been blessed to have somebody that actually had money and capital and was able to trust me to be able to do that thing. So again, like going to what I said earlier, like looking at your resources, and then you're going to have to learn about everything in a macro view first, right? So like, what is realistic? What is flipping? Understand it. What are the numbers supposed to look like? What is wholesaling? What is the BRRRR strategy? What is apartment buildings and multifamily and value add apartment buildings? And you can do that through YouTube, podcasts. Podcasts are probably the fastest way to just learn how other people did it. And then you'll start to connect the dots and be like, okay, I have these things or this experience, or I just have a shitload of time. So I need to go and find somebody that I can, give that time to, and therefore add value to them, and therefore, start getting involved in real estate. So it's really dependent on learning all those different ways that you can invest and spending a lot of time learning. And then once you have that, getting out there and going and meeting people face to face, learning people's different stories and how they got started. And then you'll know and realize like, okay, like, here's my resources, and here's like, I've listened to 10 people who got started in wholesaling, and their money and capital and experience kind of lines up directly with what I have currently. And so that would be the quickest way. I didn't do that. I just went, studied my ass off and then started networking. And like the first thing that like seemed cool to me, I started doing, and I would try it for 6 months until I failed. And then I would change strategies. Right. So if I was going to do it all over again, I would have definitely like written literally everything down on a piece of paper and like, what do I have? Who do I know? How much money do they have? And put down all your resources and then kind of try to match the best strategy for you.
Can I kind of jump in on that question right there?
Yeah.
So I started at a similar age in entrepreneurship as you at about 16. I remember you saying cold
Yeah.
calling, networking, all that stuff. That's when I started as well. But the issue was I never did anything with actually getting money or getting a deal, getting a loan, any of that stuff. So if I wanted to get into real estate, what would you say is the best way to? Also, right now with the whole coronavirus thing, people are saying it's going to be like a housing market recession like in 2008. What type of opportunities would you think would be good to capitalize on over the next few months?
Yeah. So that's a big challenge. I think is just that analysis paralysis thing, right? So, I mean, I've been having meetings with somebody every 3 months for the last 3 years, and every 3 months they tell me that they're ready to go and start investing, and I'm still waiting for them to do something. So like, there's a point too when you kind of have to make the jump, and you'll hopefully know it, and hopefully have like the right team on the ground that's going to make you trust the process. Things to capitalize on. Man, there's a lot. So one of the couple of major changes you need to be aware of. Hard money lenders stopped lending. So that means all the people that were flipping homes, like let's say 50 or 60% of them are using hard money, they're all out of the market. They probably don't have the resources or team or joint venture partners or even know how to structure that to like make sense for everybody. So there's probably going to be a whole lot of deals on the table in the next couple of months, I think. I also think a lot of people who may have lost their jobs during this coronavirus and want to just go and rent a house, and they need the cash to literally survive on, and they own a home for 30, 40, 50, 60 grand in the Midwest, they may want to liquidate. So they may liquidate their home, use that cash to go and live on, and they're going to go and find a place to live that's $700-800 a month. So those are a couple of things. The other thing that I would, and what I've been saying for the last year and a half, is Airbnbs. So all these Airbnb investors are just getting whacked right now. And I think they're going to get whacked for the next year and a half until they lose their property or lose their lease or however they're structuring their deal too. So there could be some opportunities there. Again, I don't really like A-class properties or like, downtown luxury kind of things, which Airbnbs kind of works the best in. So it's not something I would take advantage of, but there's going to be something that comes up on the other side of this due to the coronavirus, due to all these huge flood of A-class rental properties, not on Airbnb, but now on apartments.com, and all of these luxury condos, going up for rent. There's going to be a huge influx, I think, in the next 6 or 12 months kind of thing too.
You're saying don't do Airbnb now?
No, now would be probably the worst time ever to do that.
What about like buying a bunch of houses, Airbnb that after this whole thing plays out?
It might be good. I wouldn't recommend renting them out on Airbnb. I'd recommend just renting them out like on to a long-term tenant. It's just going to make much more sense. I think that this is might permanently damage the Airbnb space. I don't know. People are going to be really scared to get back into Airbnbs, and there's some Airbnb owners that own like 40 or 50 properties, and they were making 50 grand a month last year, and now they have 50 grand, $30,000 a month in leases that they have to pay, and their properties are vacant. So just something's going to happen, and something's going to break over there. I wouldn't recommend getting into Airbnb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Antoine. This is Don. How's your day going? I have a question about how to vouch for contractors, especially if you live out of state. So how do you vouch for them? And part B is, do you buy your own?
Wait, restart. I didn't hear that shit you said. Say it again.
Oh, okay. I was talking about vouching for contractors, especially if you live out of state. So to have boots on the ground, how do you get contractors? That's my first part of the question. And question 2 is, do you buy your own materials or just have the contractors just get it or just buy it on Amazon or Wayfair, or how do you do it with your company?
I didn't know Don was an Australian name now. So vouching for contractors, it depends on the way that you got the contractor. So all my contractors come from referrals. So I never had to really like vet a contractor or meet the contractor or like, hey, let me see your past work. I never had to do any of that stuff because of the way that I built my team. So I built my team through property management companies who have been in the game for like 20 or 30 years. So I would go to the property management company. Hey, I'm looking to buy this house. Like I said before, so like, I'm looking to buy this house, rehab it, and then I want you to rent it out, and then you'll make money from it. Yay for you. But I need help. In order for it to get rented out, I need help with your contractor. Do you have anybody on the ground that can maybe do this renovation? It's a small little job. That's how you get the contractor. Then that contractor, you can kind of scale up and start with a small project, scale up, scale up, scale up. And then buying materials, no, hell no. Let the contractor do that. Let the contractor handle all that kind of stuff. The only thing I've ever bought is probably appliances, but I never buy materials. I just make the price included of materials. And if they're making money on that, great. I don't really care. As long as the numbers make sense for me and they're doing stuff within my budget, it doesn't really matter to me. So much time I saved.
Okay, guys, that was the last question. We have to let Antoine go. He's probably tired. But again, I really want to thank you so much, and you stayed an hour over. It's amazing that you took all these questions. And we'll probably, when everything maybe goes back to normal, we would be very happy to have you also physically on campus.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want to interact with the students, I think you'll like it. And yeah, this was really amazing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for you 18 people sticking around to the end.
Yes,
Jesus.
Sir. Antoine, last question. What are you having for dinner, man?
For dinner? Shit.
What's for dinner?
What's for dinner? Well, I don't really cook. I actually buy these like meal plan things from like this delivery company. Because I'm the laziest piece of shit ever, so I don't cook at all. So I just warm it up for 3 minutes and then I eat in my Tupperware and throw it away.
There you go.
I wish I could just have a pill, man.
They make those.
They do? Send me the link.
Black market, man.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around, guys. Thanks for having me. And when this all, when all this is over, we'll all come over there and we can do something else or talk about something else. Maybe I'll run like an apartment building thing since you guys have seen this now. Maybe I'll talk about one of the bigger projects.
Yeah, great idea. Let's do it.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Later.